Arthur is known in the business as the mechanic. The name fits him perfectly. Everything he does is precise, clean, and ruthless. And he has only one rule: make every killing look like an accident. That is why Arthur has become one of the best assassins in the business. After finishing his latest job, Arthur quickly climbs out of the water and changes into a chef's uniform he hid earlier. The entire mansion is already in chaos. Every security guard is rushing toward the pool. Arthur uses the confusion to slip away unnoticed. Once he reaches a safe area, he changes clothes again and checks the time. His escape has been planned down to the second. In the distance, a twin-engine speedboat approaches at exactly the speed he calculated. Arthur waits for the right moment, jumps into the river, and grabs onto the back of the boat. Just like that, another perfect job is done. This is Arthur's life, one dangerous mission after another. Afterward, he meets his superior and longtime friend, Harry. The two chat like they always do. Harry praises Arthur's work and casually mentions his troublesome son, Steve. At the time, it seems like nothing important, but that conversation quietly sets up everything that comes next, because Arthur's next assignment is about to destroy his life. Back home, he opens his computer and checks the new target. The moment the photo appears, Arthur freezes. It is Harry, the same friend he just met. Arthur refuses to believe it. He immediately confronts the head of the company and demands an explanation. The boss tells him Harry sold classified information for money. A few months earlier, the company sent 5 elite agents to South Africa for a highly classified 6-month operation. All 5 were ambushed and killed. Only 2 people knew every detail of the mission: the boss himself and Harry. Then comes another piece of evidence. 2 weeks earlier, $20 million appeared in one of Harry's overseas accounts. Harry was getting old. He was drowning in debt, and he had a son who constantly caused trouble and burned through money. The boss says he does not want to do this either, but the business has rules. Anyone who crosses the line has to be removed. And Arthur was chosen for one reason. Harry trusts him more than anyone. That makes Arthur the easiest person to get close enough and finish the job cleanly. The boss gives him 2 days. If Arthur refuses, someone else will kill Harry, and they will not make it quick. Arthur desperately wants to believe Harry is innocent, but the dead agents and the $20 million transfer look like solid evidence. After struggling with the decision, Arthur finally gives in. If Harry has to die, at least he can make sure his old friend does not suffer. Arthur calls Harry and warns him that someone is coming to kill him. He tells Harry to leave the building immediately. Harry trusts him completely. He follows Arthur's instructions, avoids the cameras, leaves his bodyguards behind, and enters an empty underground parking garage. The moment Harry sees Arthur waiting there, he understands everything. He does not argue. He does not fight back. Instead, he calmly pulls out his custom-engraved Colt and fires 3 shots into his own car. He is helping Arthur make the scene look like a carjacking gone wrong. Then Harry hands him the gun. Arthur pauses. A few seconds later, he pulls the trigger. Harry falls. The mission is complete, but that shot stays with Arthur. As a mechanic, he followed his orders perfectly. As a friend, he just killed someone he cared about. At Harry's funeral, Arthur sees Steve. The young man is filled with anger because Arthur staged the killing so perfectly. Steve truly believes his father was killed by a car thief. He swears he will find the killer. That same night, Steve parks his car on a deserted road and tries to use himself as bait. Just as he is about to pull the trigger, Arthur suddenly appears and takes him down. In fact, Arthur has been secretly watching over Steve for a while. He knows the kid is going to get himself killed. Protecting him is the only thing Arthur feels he can still do for Harry. A few days later, Steve asks Arthur to train him. Arthur does not think Steve is suited for this kind of work, but Steve's words hit him hard. Out of guilt, Arthur agrees. The training lasts 3 weeks. First, Arthur makes Steve adopt a Chihuahua. Then he tells him to take the dog to the same coffee shop every morning. Steve must sit by the window, drink coffee, and work on Sudoku. Only after that does the weapons training begin. And guns are just one part of it. Steve also studies all the different ways insurance companies classify accidental deaths. To make training easier, Arthur lets Steve move into his house. But there are 2 rules. Do not drive the sports car in the garage, and do not touch the record player. Once the training is over, Arthur takes Steve on his first mission. The target is an illegal arms dealer. Arthur approaches him pretending to be a buyer. Then he uses a rope to kill him. Afterward, Arthur stages the scene. He leaves pornography playing on the dead man's computer, making it look like he died from overexcitement. That is the real skill of a mechanic. It is not just about killing someone. It is about making the death look accidental. Steve remembers every detail. Soon, Arthur gives him his first solo mission. The target is another professional assassin. The man is extremely cautious, so a normal killer would never get close. That is is exactly why Arthur sends Steve. Steve looks inexperienced and harmless. The target goes to the same coffee shop every morning. He loves chihuahuas, and he has a weakness for bearded men. That is why Arthur created Steve's coffee shop routine in the first place. Eventually, the target notices him and starts a conversation. Steve accepts his invitation. Before the meeting, Arthur prepares a deadly poison. 6 drops are enough to cause brain death. Steve only needs to slip it into the man's drink. That night, the two sit together at a bar. When the target gets up to use the bathroom, Steve finally has his chance. He takes out the poison. Then he changes his mind. He remembers how smoothly Arthur handled his own assignment. Steve wants to prove he can do it the hard way, so he puts the poison away. A little later, the target invites him home. Arthur had warned Steve not to fight a 300-pound man head-on. Steve ignores him. Once they get inside, the man starts getting physical. Steve pretends to go along with it. Then, when the target drops his guard, Steve grabs his belt and wraps it around his neck. But the man is far stronger than Steve expected. Steve quickly starts losing the fight. At the last second, he grabs a screwdriver from the table. The mission is completed, but Steve comes out covered in blood. Hardly the clean work Arthur taught him. Still, Arthur considers the test passed. Steve officially becomes his partner. Their next target is the leader of a cult. Arthur comes up with another precise plan. They will inject the target with adrenaline and trigger cardiac arrest. Then the medical team will unknowingly give him more adrenaline. The second dose will finish the job. Everything is ready. Arthur and Steve infiltrate the hotel and watch the room through a hidden camera. Then something unexpected happens. The target turns out to be a drug addict. Arthur realizes the ketamine in his system will interfere with the adrenaline. The plan is ruined, but there is no time to back out. When the target's assistant steps outside to make a phone call, Arthur and Steve enter the room. They force the camera tube down the man's throat and suffocate him. When the assistant returns, he assumes his boss died from a drug overdose. He immediately calls for help. Everyone starts clearing the drugs out of the room. Then Steve accidentally knocks a screw loose. The assistant hears it. He sends a bodyguard to investigate. The footsteps get closer. A gunshot rings out. The bodyguard drops. Arthur and Steve quickly escape down the ropes they prepared earlier and disappear into the chaos below. For safety, they split up and agree to meet back at Arthur's house. While waiting at a station, Arthur notices a man wearing glasses. He knows that face. According to the boss, this man should already be dead. Arthur follows him onto a bus and confronts him. The man finally tells him the truth. The boss paid him to kill the other 4 members of his team and fake his own death. Harry was never a traitor. He had started to suspect something was wrong with one of the company's missions and wanted to expose it, so the boss needed Harry silenced. And Arthur was the perfect person to do it. The truth hits Arthur hard. He was used, and he personally killed his own mentor. Arthur explodes with anger. The two fight inside the bus. Eventually, the man is thrown outside and hit by a passing vehicle. Arthur returns to the dock, planning to head home, but something feels wrong. The old man who normally stays there is gone. Then a car arrives. The company has sent assassins after Arthur. They search the dock, but cannot find him. Then Arthur suddenly bursts out of the water. Within seconds, he takes down 3 of them. Now he is furious. He has not even gone after Dean yet, and Dean is already trying to kill him. Arthur races back toward his island in a speedboat. Then Steve calls. He is already inside Arthur's house, but assassins have surrounded him. Arthur tells Steve there is a handgun hidden inside the left side of the sofa. From that point on, Steve has to save himself. He manages to kill every attacker. Arthur reaches the island and tells Steve to load all their equipment onto the boat. They are going after Dean. While moving gear from the garage, Steve accidentally knocks over a bag. A silver Browning M1911 falls out. Steve recognizes it immediately. It was Harry's favorite gun, the one his father treasured for years. And suddenly, Steve understands everything. All this time, he has been looking for his father's killer. Now he knows that killer is Arthur, his own teacher. On the road, Steve quietly asks Arthur a question. Has he ever killed someone he knew? Arthur says yes. Steve turns away so Arthur cannot see the pain on his face. Arthur falls silent too. The rest of the drive feels much longer. The two eventually find Dean's personal bodyguard. Arthur tracked him down through the championship ring he wore. Arthur demands Dean's location. The bodyguard refuses to talk, so Arthur brings out the man's daughter. He turns on a garbage disposal and threatens to force her hand inside. The bodyguard still refuses. Arthur finally pushes the hand down. The man immediately gives up Dean's address, but his daughter is unharmed. Arthur had actually thrown a piece of beef into the disposal. Meanwhile, Dean is hiding at a secret location when he gets a call from Arthur. Dean admits he took $50 million and betrayed Harry. He still thinks he is safe. Then he notices something terrifying. The call appears to be coming from the conference room upstairs. Dean panics. He grabs his guards and rushes out of the building. But Arthur is not upstairs. He simply rerouted the phone line from the first floor. It was a trap. Dean and his men move into the street. As their convoy turns into an alley, a blue car suddenly crashes into the vehicles behind him. The guards jump out. Arthur opens fire with an FN 2000 tactical rifle and pins them down. Then a bus appears from the other end. Steve has arrived. The lead vehicle crashes into the bus and explodes. Dean tells his driver to turn around, but Arthur charges in with a garbage truck. He lifts Dean's car and slams it back onto the ground. Dean crawls out covered in blood. Arthur and Steve finish him. Arthur has finally avenged Harry, but Steve still has his own revenge to settle. On the drive home, Arthur tells Steve what comes next. They will disappear completely. New names, new jobs, new lives. Then Steve reaches back for some water. Arthur notices the silver Browning M1911 hidden under his clothes. Now Arthur knows. Steve has discovered the truth. Arthur stops at a gas station. Steve gets out to fill the tank. Before walking away, he turns back and gives Arthur one last chance to confess. Arthur says nothing. That is enough for Steve. He places the fuel nozzle outside the tank and lets gasoline spill across the ground. Then he walks behind the station, pulls out his father's gun, and fires. A massive explosion follows. Arthur's truck disappears inside a fireball. Steve believes he has finally avenged his father. He returns to Arthur's island. Now everything belongs to him. He plays the record player Arthur never allowed him to touch. Then he walks into the garage and starts the red Jaguar E-Type he always wanted to drive. At that moment, a hidden mechanism inside the record player activates. Steve notices a letter on the passenger seat. It is from Arthur. The message says that if Steve is reading it, then he is already dead. Steve thinks it is ridiculous. Then the entire house explodes. Everything disappears into the flames. Arthur had already predicted exactly what Steve would do. He prepared the traps in advance. If Steve had never returned to the island, he would have survived. And Arthur is not dead either. Before the explosion at the gas station, he had already slipped away from the truck. That is what being a mechanic really means. Every step has to be calculated, not only when killing someone else, but also when saving yourself. Now Arthur will take a new name, move to a new city, and disappear into the crowd once again.